Hi, folks. How's it going? It's good to somewhat see you all or e-meet some of you. Imad, do you want to give a little bit of a breakdown of today's workshop, and then we can kind of get started with some introductions after that?
Sure. So today we are going to introduce you guys to the project, the collective artwork that the Packard put together for the future landing platform called Talk to You Soon, Talk to You Later. And we'll be letting you guys play around with the artwork for a bit and engage you guys in a session of meaning making. And then after that, we'll discuss that for a bit, and then we'll be able to talk to you guys about the kind of process and conversations that went into creating this work together. And then afterwards, we will be asking you to gather some materials for day 2 of the workshop, which will inform you towards the end.
Sounds good. Thanks, Imad. I'm just going to go ahead straight away and share my screen. Do this. Here we go. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
All right. Great.
While this is going, do we want to do some intros?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. I mean, I'd love to maybe if we can go around and introduce ourselves briefly, just in terms of who we are, what we do, what our kind of interests are, that kind of thing, and how we kind of have come to this particular moment in time on this online workshop, kind of thing. So maybe I can start, and then we can kind of go around based on what is next on the screen. So my name is Sandev. I am an artist, and I work as a curator, but also as an artist in some ways, and do some education work. And I'm one part of the Packard. So born and raised, I guess, in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, and kind of lived most of my life here. And I have, developed close friendships with Imad and a few others who are part of the Packard. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing here. Who's next? On my screen, I think Farah is next. No. Farah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I've just joined in, so I've lost the beginning bit, and I'm a little unsure of what's happening.
Oh, right. Sorry. I just saw that. We're just introducing ourselves, just saying hi.
Okay, hi. My name is Farah Mullah. I was a part of Future Landing, and I work as a researcher and a sound artist. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. I think next we have Tashiana.
Hi. I'm just gonna switch off my camera for a second because I think there's something wrong with my screen. But hi, I'm Tashiana. I'm a poet, and I came on board for this project through the Packet. I'm currently a student and studying international development. And yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, why don't we just go, because my screen is constantly changing. So whoever's next, just kind of feel free to hop on in.
Hi, I'm Pranay. I am also an artist. I'm based in Delhi right now, and I work mostly with video and paintings. Yeah, looking forward to the workshop.
Should I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Praveen. I mean, I'm at a bit of a space where I could say like I am a creative technologist, since most of the artworks I work with are based on technology and futures of, those implications. Yeah, so that's it.
That leaves me and Priyanka. Hi, this is Keith, and we are Priyanka. We are part of the Serendipity team, and happy to be here.
Hi.
All right, great. So if I haven't missed anyone, I'm not sure if I have, but maybe we can, yeah, jump straight in. I'm wondering, Imad, if you wanted to kind of introduce maybe the packet and some of the project and how this kind of came together too, and we can start
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. So the packet started out with a group of friends who just happened to be artists deciding to um, see what we could explore if we tried working together. And initially, this idea came up because we were all in Colombo at the time, about 8 of us, 10 of us, and we would meet quite regularly and host, take turns cooking for each other and just being in conversation. And then this idea came about of putting together some kind of work. So we were in conversation about what drawing our interests in terms of how we were responding to Sri Lanka, the world, and such. And we thought to create a deconstructed art book is how we were thinking of it early on. And we needed a vessel for it. And we thought of putting it in these little packets that you usually get something like chickpeas in. And that's how the packet kind of came. We were interested in exploring zine making. And since then, our work has taken various forms outside of print, including the online. So we have an Instagram page that we update regularly. It started out as just a way to kind of see if we could interest people in our artist book that took forever to make, and it kind of got a life of its own. Shit posting turned into this thing that people were interested in. And yeah, now a few of us are still in Sri Lanka. Quite a few of us are in different places. Last year, we were able to do a program for young emerging artists called ICS through a grant from Pro Helvetia. And with that, we were able to expand our sort of group from 8 to about 14 to 18, sort of. And now we're this kind of amorphous body of friends and artists creating work. And this particular piece we developed, when would that have been? I think towards the end of last year, between like
Yeah, towards the end.
the last few months of last year. And yeah, it was this idea of kind of inspired by how our Instagram stories, with that many people sharing an Instagram account, we just post whatever we want. And we never know like who's posting what story, but we would find these strange conversations that were happening between these. And that's kind of what inspired this particular piece. So what we did was we each drew from our own archives of like screenshots, TikToks we downloaded, all kinds of different things that we keep. So here we took screenshots of books we were reading, screenshots of websites, photographs that we've taken, things like that, and brought it into this one space. And what it does is it puts them in conversation with each other. So that's what we're going to see now. Maybe Sandev can say a little bit more. And then, yeah, let's talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Imad. And so what we decided to do was, on the invitation of Virangana and Serendipity, is to kind of have this sort of, I guess, digital space in which, as Imad was talking about, these randomized Instagram stories. All of us are posting on Instagram, and slowly they start to create these little relationships between these random stories. So sometimes it feels like we're having a concerted conversation on Instagram, and none of us actually talking to each other. It's just kind of posting. And we were thinking about that, and we were invited to kind of think through sort of an online platform for Serendipity Art. We dug into archives, but what we were also doing is we were kind of collating. I think it was a quite a big number of images per person involved on this project. So it was usually, I think one of the themes we went with was the idea of wasteland. And so we just were kind of using the word, kind of keeping the word or the theme wasteland in our minds, and then just cycling through our own digital archives. And when we talk about archives, I think it's a very loose term, right? It's not the organized archive; it's the archive that is just your screenshots or the most random kind of disorganized thing on your phone, because these become kind of, our phones kind of do sort of become like automatic or auto archives in some ways by how much we screenshot, how we're working on or coming across the images we're coming across, what we're choosing to keep, what we're choosing to hold on to and remember and collect and then share with somebody else, and someone else shares with us. So we're thinking about all of these kind of things. And so we kind of dipped into our archive for this particular section with the sort of idea of wasteland in mind. I'm pretty, I just have to correct me if I'm wrong, Iman, if wasteland was the first theme that we went with. It's
Yes.
been a while since we looked at this. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we started collecting these images, and then we talked about what would it mean to kind of simulate or give the opportunity for kind of a layered process, right? Where we're thinking about this notion of listening to images, but also having images speak to each other. Not just listen to a single image, but in their speaking, in the event of two images meeting each other, what does it mean for them to kind of start to generate new conversations? So what we started doing was we kind of worked with the wonderful team that Virangana put together with Serendipity, and we built this little online platform that essentially it requires anyone involved to upload, their collection of images. So I uploaded 150, Imad uploaded 150, these kind of images, and so all of us kind of uploaded this big amount of images. And this platform, what you're looking at right now, is something that randomizes the relationship, that places one image next to another, but it's completely random. So I think I can't remember the exact number or kind of data, but I think it was something about if you're on here for 72 hours nonstop, will you come across a repeat relationship or repeat pairing of images? So essentially you're on here and it's constantly randomizing. You're never seeing the same pair. You might see the same image repeating, but not perhaps the same pair repeating themselves. And so if you look, I'm just going to move this up because I can't really see very well. So if you look on this side, you can also increase the speed of this of the pairings, and so it becomes this much more kind of simulacrum or like this flutter that's happening, and you can bring it to a really increased speed, and so you can really randomize how you're, the speed at which you're thinking about these images. And then and the idea here also is that if an image did stick out to you, it's very hard to go back to it. It's very hard to reach back to that kind of moment of pairing. So it's kind of like this, quick, instantaneous kind of notion of do I observe? Do I let this kind of flutter go over me or affect me, or is my urge to collect that? Is my urge to kind of make sense of it? Is to keep it, to observe, to meditate on it? And then as you move further down, if I move this icon, it just really slows down. So I have a lot more time to look, to think, to see these images and listen to them, and see the ways and listen to the ways that maybe they're speaking to each other too.
Oh my God!
I'm just gonna. I know.
Speaking of.
Yeah. So for context, up here we have, this is a bunch folks involved in politics. And one of the figures that we're seeing here is the current president of the United States, but I mean, not the United States, of Sri Lanka, but who is also has been, and his regime has been accused of numerous sort of war crimes and such. And next to that was a set of murals that when Gotabaya came to power right at the end, most recently, there was this huge campaign of mural painting where they encouraged young people, young men in all over Sri Lanka, in all the villages, to go around and paint murals to kind of celebrate kind of Sri Lanka. And what inevitably ended up happening is a lot of these murals were really glorifying of the military, were really glorifying of kind of national myths, or myths that kind of played a huge part in kind of nation building or nation making. And one of those you see, and also, I mean, they're really fascinating because you have also then that Superman opening his shirt, but the lion there is part of the Sri Lankan flag, and the Sri Lankan flag has so many more kind of, visual things on it. But the lion removed out of the context of the Sri Lankan flag and is just featuring the lion has come to be known as a fighter, supremacist, Sinhalese racist symbol. So you're having these two random images kind of placed together. And I know that I uploaded that image of the president, but I don't know who put that image of the Superman kind of opening with the kind of racist symbol on there. So now we start to build, and through this kind of technology, we started to kind of create these relationships, right? And we wanted to invite people to observe and kind of have a look and play with these kind of relationships and see what comes to mind for them. One of the other things that we also have here is you'll also see there's these quotes at the bottom here in this text, and that is also kind of randomized, selected from various points of reading, various sources that we have collectively together, and the program also kind of displays these quotes or randomizes how these quotes are displayed. Now, one thing that we thought would be really fun and fascinating thing to do is to introduce this option of a print screen, which is essentially, if you do want to capture a particular relationship, you can quickly hit print screen and it'll download to your computer. So I'm going to try it right now. Something I find interesting. And so I don't know if you can see, but it just downloaded to my computer and it sort of opens up. So part of the relationship is that someone is going through it. Imagine it going at this pace, at really a fast pace. And what happens when you hit print screen? And then you have this kind of little conversation that is crystallized in a screenshot, essentially, that then you receive and you can kind of think about it. And also you can do it when you're kind of moving a lot slower in some sense. And some of the things I guess I wanted to kind of think about, or have been thinking about since this, we put this up, is that notion, I know I've said it a few times, of kind of listening to images. And I've been reading a lot of Tina Camp's work about images and kind of the relationships between them. And this feels like really how each of us kind of approach our own archives and thinking about Wasteland and kind of putting these images together. So Tina Camp asks, what does it mean to encounter images and to look beyond what you actually see? That means opening up ourselves as viewers to the other ways that images touch us, make contact with us, and resonate with us. If you background what you see, you develop a relationship to everything that came to produce this particular image. What is being performed, you can't necessarily see by looking at the image, but you can apprehend when you look away from the image and you attune yourself to the impression that is left upon you by the person who decided to take this image. And then she goes on to speak about kind of, so again, what does it, to kind of think about, to summarize, is there's so much that has gone into the production of this particular image. And so when we're looking at it, where we can look at the image and take it in, but what happens when you just turn away for a second and think about what are the systems, what are the people, what are the circumstances that kind of moved in together or converged in order for this image to be born? And then she moves further. She takes that, from that point on, she thinks about this notion of images are haptic, as in they can resonate, they can actually have, we can touch them, we can do so on, but they can also have an affect, or they can be affective. which also means that when they start speaking together, speaking to us, we can think about them. Can we think about images not as just an event that happened when the image was taken, but when we're looking at the image itself, can that be something that we are, can us looking at an image or kind of the resonating, or can an image speaking to another image in itself become an event before or after, way after that event of the photograph itself has been taken or the screenshot itself has been taken? So those are some of the things that we're kind of playing around here with. So that's just the kind of intro. I'm wondering if I maybe pause here and if anyone kind of has any questions.
Audible and my signal's a bit iffy. But thanks so much for that, Sandeep. And I'm so glad you brought in camps. I'm guessing this is listening to images.
Yeah.
We've got it in the future landing reference in case anyone would like to read it, we can share it. But also what Cam says on this idea of haptics that comes in beyond this idea of that, and I know Farah's on this call as well, but about how we move into haptics in a digital space, but you also bring in the sense of the image and text, and how every time the text changes, you rethink what the image is as well, and this association keeps changing. So yeah, that's just something that's also very fascinating, and it keeps bringing in new meaning every time. Thank you for taking us through that. Yeah.
Thanks, Vera. Yeah, I think that notion also of like the text entering, I think at the bottom, is definitely something that's, that's taking it in a more complicated direction. But also I feel like noticing the text in here itself, the text in the image itself, because there is also an event that has happened there, which is in fact someone has decided to collect that piece of text as an image,
Exactly.
and then put it back out there as an image.
And over here, if somebody takes a screenshot, that becomes something which again replicates that in some way again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just Imad, do you want to move into sort of the next step a little bit?
Sorry, were you speaking to me? Because it jumbled up for a second.
No, I was just saying, should we move into the next step where we kind of invite people to play around a little bit?
Yes, let's.
All right.
So what we can do is you guys can tell us what speed you want to go at, and we'll set it to that. And then when you want us to screenshot something, just say screenshot, and then Sandeep will start collecting them. And then once we've gone through that, you want to change the speed, however you want to interact, you can interact, and Sandeep will do that. And then we'll have a look at what we end up collecting in the screenshots. And yeah.
Iman, I'm wondering, should we give, we can do that, but we could also give them the link, right, itself? And they can collect like maybe 2 or 3
but then
screenshots.
each of them would have to collect the screenshots, and then I guess they would have to share screen to show it to us now.
Yeah. What would you folks prefer? To use the link yourselves, or because basically what we're thinking of doing is basically, giving you like 5 minutes and to just really pick 4 images or to make 4 screenshots that then we can maybe bring it up and share with each other and talk about a little bit, and also talk about why you feel like you picked them, or if there was an accident, and so on. What do you folks prefer?
Can we share the images in the chat? Is that possible?
Or even if they're on the screen and then we respond, if that might be more participatory. Unless each person wants to, I don't know, Priyanka, are you suggesting we each take images and share them in the chat, or?
Yeah, that might get complicated. So maybe Sandeep, you can.
Or then I don't know if everyone wants to share their screen after doing it, or.
I'm happy to take screenshots and then share screen. I think that will make it an easier flow for me. but I'm open to suggestions.
What? I'd also prefer that. That way people can also play with their own kind of timeline as opposed to kind of and do it kind of it'd be a little bit more of a personal kind of relationship that we can then talk about. Yeah. So I just sent you all the link on the chat. So feel free to have a kind of a look at it. I'll stop sharing my screen for a bit. So, and you can now move the dial to kind of whatever speed you want. Has everyone been able to get access to the website?
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't we take, shall we say 5 minutes, Iman?
Yeah.
Five minutes, yeah. And so, I mean, you can screenshot as much as you want, but maybe at the end of it, we can come up with like 4 images that we each want to kind of share and kind of that you each want to share and discuss and just talk about. And we can just, you don't have to have a kind of clear sort of sense of it. Yes, stop it here again. We don't have to have a kind of a clear understanding why necessarily we picked it, but we'll just kind of engage together on a, I guess, exercise of kind of looking closely at these images and looking at them together, which could be a fun thing. All right, so let's come back at 7:10 or in 5 minutes. So I don't know if everyone's on the same time zone. So it's 7:05 here, and let's come back at 7:10. Right. Hi, folks. Is everyone back, or are you still on the? Just give a shout and let us know when you're back. No rush.
Is there a way to like sort of attach the images into the chat box? I'm kind of not being able to do that.
I think you can do a file. I think next to the chat there's a thing that says file, and you can. If not, you can also just share your screen, whatever is easier.
So I'm on my
Maybe a screen
phone.
share might be easier because I can speak through it, you think? I haven't been able to load any images because my signal is just so bad right now. It just keeps coming on as a blank. So I'm going to probably watch through everything.
Okay, I tried to share one
Imad, you're on
screenshot.
mute.
Yeah.
Right. So on mine, I can click the green button, and I'm using a phone as well. And then there's scroll down, there's a photo option.
Wait,
That allows you to.
I can only sort of attach emojis for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah. So like that, I'm able to share. Yours isn't only emojis.
Yeah, for some reason. Oh, yeah. Okay, so share a photo. Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, I can also download them and screen share them for you. So I got, I think Praveen, I saw you had sent an image.
Yeah, I was trying whether I can share it actually. Is it open? I mean, can you?
It basically, yeah, it downloaded onto my phone. I can open it. I can share that screen.
Okay, and I took just a lot of screenshots, I think. Like every time I was getting I was feeling a connection, I just took a screenshot. So this is just one of them.
Cool. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. The temptation is you just keep taking screenshots and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So if you want to just even if you can, we can just discuss one, two. But if you'd like to, we can upload maybe 3 or 4 more too, and I can download them and I can share them if that works for you. Or unless you
I can share.
yourself.
I can share the screen. Hopefully it works. I guess.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great.
Is it visible?
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to me, like I started with this. This was the first one I was clicking at. I was like, okay, there was this direct conflict, which was just as soon as I saw those two combinations, I was like, oh, there's a conflict, something, or a discussion going on between either physically or maybe through a discussion, through verbally or through non-verbally between the two people. So that was like how I started. Then I think it was more of a visual cue because I increased the speed and like this one was, I saw the whole sort of organic tree and I don't know what this thing is on the left. But to me it just felt like it connects in a story somehow, like a post and free thing. And since it was very fast, I was just taking another screenshot. This I didn't read through, but I just clicked it just to see that, okay, what's happening if I'm going very fast. Yeah, so these are like those texts from, because I was not able to read it, but I thought I wanted to, get into the connection that, okay, what's the story behind these? So I think after I clicked, I was just reading through that. Oh, does they even connect when I'm reading, or are they talking to each other, as you said, right, Sandeep? And then at this point I was like, this is one where I just slowed down the speed a lot and like, oh, this is just it gave me a very alien feeling to me. And I was like, this just connects to me as a caricatures of a story of some sort of alien invasion or alien interactions or something. Then this was like Venn diagram, and then on the right I saw that like mixing of
sort of construction and celestial objects together with a background which should not be there as a intermix. So that was very interesting for me. Like when this thing happens, I was like, oh, a logical concept just got reflected in the next combination there. And yeah, this was another one of those direct combinations where like a trash and another trash got corrected for me. Yeah, this is also something similar where I saw that, oh, there's a relationship which is showing three objects in a very different setup, and they are sort of talking to each other, and they sort of connect in between. So this was another one, and I think, yeah, this is the last one which I took. Again, this was on like fast forward step, and like, yeah, this became a meme for me in itself. That, oh, this is a meme in itself, where alien is saying like doom and the owl is giving that reaction.
Wow. Does anyone else want to jump in about what connections are happening for you while looking at these? Maybe we can collectively just look at these closer.
Or if anybody else would like to share, I can stop sharing.
Why don't we discuss these a little bit, and then we can go
Sure.
on to the other people too. Yeah, I think they're great kind of screenshots.
One thing I was like, initially I was not reading a lot at the bot. Then later I realized that okay, it's not changing when I am just reducing or increasing the speed. Yeah, but when the page sort of refreshes for me, then it was giving me this change text, or I didn't. Yeah, it was like same for me since I was just clicking faster, I guess.
Yeah, the text I think changes at a different pace than the images do. The text stays a little bit longer. I'm wondering if anyone else had any reflections on some of the images that Praveen shared.
I think Pranay is also ready to share, I guess.
Yeah. Just going back to your first image,
yeah,
Praveen. Yeah, so this one I think is a really curious one. I think just because on one end, there's this screenshot. I can't remember. I don't know who this is. But I mean, I didn't upload either of these kind of images. But one of them, yeah, it's just a screenshot of someone called D. Nirmala Singham. Imad, do you know?
Lingam,
yeah. Lingam. Imad, do you know who this is?
Mindara Lingam. Yeah, he's the Prince of Colombo. This is a very curious character of the Colombo nightlife, going strong about 20 years. I think he's probably in his mid-40s now. Recently, he started posting these images of him working out, getting fit and stuff. So there he's, practicing boxing. And I think that's Harlik in the shadow there. This was a power cut.
During Christmas dinner, was it? No, it was something else.
Think, not long after y'all had moved into this place. And yeah, it's really interesting how there's this sort of like practice of a violent movement, and then this very intimate space with the flame being perhaps the wildest looking thing there.
And I also felt, since the images were changing randomly on left and right, it's just that when I clicked the screenshot, for me the story started first from the left image, since it didn't change and the right one changed first, right? And I think that impression was what followed the scene on the second one.
Yeah. And that's something that happens with the randomization, right? One of the images stays, so you're kind of connecting with it longer, and then there's a change, and then you're almost like from one to the other. It's kind of sending you to a different. Now you're reading the next image through the lens of the previous one or the one that stayed, in some sense. So yeah, while the context of this conversation. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they become like traces also, no? That like remain in a sense, and they kind of start overlapping sometimes onto that one image. In a way, it's like overwriting or like, these layers as well.
Yeah. I think we were also, I think I'm also really curious about Megal, who is our friend who's sitting there, and the way she is leaning away from what was being said, at the same time that kind of the body being like hit back. I don't know. And there's this on one end, there's this very physical kind of sense of like violence being executed, and then in the other side, it's this kind of like, I think Praveen, you mentioned kind of that sense of emotional something happening, right? Like, oh, what are you saying? Kind of thing.
And you can see like even on the left, the mannequin has sort of tilted on a bit on the right side, and the same thing I saw that. Oh, I don't know. It's like almost a replica happening.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, what was funny was all the fire. We didn't have candles at home at the time, and I think we were soaking paper in oil, I think, and just lighting it on fire on the table to light the scene. So it's also kind of a very like chaotic, violent kind of thing that's happening there. But why don't we maybe see what? And also think it's quite funny where it's Europe's biggest fetish fantasy event. I think what's also curious, also some of this is something that we've thought about with our practice, is because these are personal kind of screenshots and things like that, and something we've continued to do is to think about hyperlocality, in the sense in which some of these things only the full, like the true context of them only relate to the person taking the screenshot at the time or the photograph at the time or something like that. But what happens when you kind of also then remove it from that hyperlocal context and you push it out and you have someone reckon with what this might mean? So even in the meaning making, there's a conversation happening, right? There's someone who perhaps has all the context and someone who doesn't have any of the context and is just kind of reading the image visually. And what happens when those two people come into conversation with each other? And how does the image change and shift and things like that too? I think is a
absolutely. Yeah, I think even on Instagram, the packets stories are like that for me, where I just check it out and this random changes story happens, and it sometimes connects to me. I don't know, a lot of time I don't know the context yet, but I think in my head I still make up a story because of those different story posts, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that making up a story is the curious point, right? That is the place in which we start to, what happens if we were to look at images and speculate about what they could be? If you were to take that image and kind of enter it into our lives and into our context almost forcefully and say, here, live here and make sense in this space that I am in. And what happens and how can we read images differently then? I think is a curious question.
That's a very interesting space to be for me.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks, Praveen. I think we'll move on. Pranay, I know you shared one image. Do you want to screen share? Or do you want me to share that image on my screen?
I can screen share as well. So I just logged in from my PC.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you see my
Sorry,
screen?
it's complicated. Yes, we do. Yeah.
So this is something that I found really funny. That was like Donald Trump and and there's this sort of meme about a relationship beside that. But that was kind of ironical. That was funny. This was something as a visual for me.
Whoa.
A very, very visual sort of a screenshot for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, some.
Oh my gosh.
And there's this. And this too.
Yeah, would you want to tell us a little bit about them, or what, as you're looking at them now, like what's occurring?
For me, I was kind of looking at the sort of screenshots very visually in terms of how it sort of relates to one another. So again, like dummy available here, and the mannequins and almost like these people floating inside the black water look like mannequins because of the kind of picture quality that it has. So that was interesting for me. And yeah, this was just like, yeah, this is like this neoclassical painting, and then this man sort of burning up, and then again, like very, very visual for me again. Yeah. So yeah.
Thanks, Pranay. Yeah, I'm wondering if anyone has any kind of reflections, or as they're looking at these images, is there anything occurring to you, or are there connections that are kind of coming up for you?
This one is just I mean, it just has when I look at it, to me this is like a lot of stories happening symbolically or metaphorically. I'm like, okay, there are there's multiple layers, as a mother was saying, right? I'm like, okay, this can be unraveled in a lot of ways, and very intense combination, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious as to where the source of the images are from. Like, for example, the one on the right, like, is it something that you guys uploaded, or is that some other collaborator sort of, put this up? Like,
I don't
So this
recall.
one, I remember at some point someone had posted this on stories. This one I've seen on our stories. I'm not sure who posted it, but I know that the one on the left is actually
self-immolation.
Self-immolation of a monk. I believe this is when they were protesting the cattle slaughter, basically against the slaughtering of cattle, which in Sri Lanka has a very anti-Muslim agenda to it. To me, what I'm struck by here is the kind of gesture, or like the movement that's happening of the flame, and then the angles of these cube light things, the sort of gesture that the woman in the classical painting are making. There's something about that movement that's like really striking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing with this piece also, is that since I think about 6 of us contributed to this, like I can only identify something that I've put there. So it's really fascinating when most of us can't really tell who's in conversation.
I'm also approaching this from a kind of an art historical perspective. You know how quite recently, I think there was a shooting at some diplomatic event. Is it Turkish diplomatic event? Am I getting this wrong? Maybe in 2020, 2019, and kind of all of these more recent kind of events. I think it was a trend that started on the internet after like riots, after a few things like really intense events that were documented online would happen. If people would kind of take these images and talk about them as Renaissance paintings. Of a riot, and then people on the ground versus like a policeman dragging someone off, all of those kind of, then there's this whole kind of conversation of internet conversation on these kind of Renaissance paintings kind of being acted out in real life through these kind of events, these tragic events kind of thing. And then next to that, on this side, you see this actual kind of painting, this figure from a painting being inserted into kind of real life. And then I'm thinking about the composition of the image to the left, where it does feel in some ways of like kind of this kind of the composition in some ways of a painting. And I'm also curious about the text right on there, which says painted in 1961, half of the painting is black and the other half beige. A single black line interrupts the light portion. Which is almost like I mean, I know the colors are off, but like the idea of that shawl, that piece of fabric kind of splitting the image there. Again, here is a question also of how much am I reading into this, or how much is the image telling me, or how much am I listening to the image, or how much am I speaking about or into the image. And I think that's also what starts to become fun, right? Because it invites us to speak into it, or even to listen in our speaking into it in some sense. I'm wondering about anybody else. Did you have any other reflections as you were looking through Pranay's images?
Like to me, like, the person on fire, it was sort of an outburst to have the attention of the people, right? Generally this is what it's taken as, right? It is to instigate that there's a message that I want to convey, right? And on the right, to me, it was like also opposite in the story. Like even in the sort of a crowded or it's a club space, you want to hide yourself, or the naked you. It needs a sort of a covering, and you are trying to hide the message from the people around.
Yeah, yeah, it's a curious reading of it.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we, just also around time, why don't we move on? Who'd like to kind of, or Anastasia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just from the previous image, one thing that like popped in my head almost immediately when I saw those two images was just this line. I think it was from a Sean Kingston song where it's fire burning on the dance floor. It's really kind of like feeling when you're kind of like looking at both of those images, and for some reason the overlap of those two images within that one line really made me question like those contexts and what those ideas that kind of live in those two separate worlds of kind of just like release, but in very different contexts, which I thought was, yeah, it's a really interesting association.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, like there's this notion of like, yeah, this release, right? What is considered a space of release, of what is being released, or what is being thought about, what is ideology there, and how is a release kind of thought about in a club space, and who is it that accesses it, and who is it that thinks about it ideologically as a place of release, versus who is involved and what ideologies are involved in thinking about the other space, which is the public space, and the relationship of religion in the public sphere, and that as a release, this kind of self-immolation as a release in some sense, if I'm hearing that.
Yeah, it's kind of like what is, in a way, what is truly accepted and what can be considered something that's like in very specific spaces accepted and also controlled in a lot of ways, I guess, in both of those images. And yeah, I think just thinking about where they overlap and where they kind of diverge from each other, it was really interesting just to see that.
Yeah. Who'd like to share screenshots next?
Shall I quickly just share screen? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. So I've had a complete system reset on my laptop, so I'm not too sure. This is the first time I'm doing it, and it's taking me to some settings. Hang on.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Okay, I won't be able to share screen until I quit and reopen Zoom. So is it easier? Is it more convenient if I just drop off images into the chat box over here?
Sure. Yes, I can then download them and I can show that.
Sorry about this. I thought it would be
No
like
problem. All good. No worries. In the meantime, I'm wondering if Tashina, you wanna go. As these might take some time to download.
Yes, my My mouse keeps losing connection with my computer, so I might, yeah, I'm not, something might go off in a bit, but let me just try and see if I can share my screen.
Oh, I have just gotten, sorry, I just managed to download Farah's images.
Oh,
Sorry, Tashi, I'm just gonna, so I just can share as you're figuring out. Just put this up, right. Screen. Here we go. Oh no, this is not the one, right? Can you see? Is this the one, Farah?
There's a couple of these, yes.
Yes.
I guess for me it was, I mean, the whole project is about like juxtaposition of images and how they talk to each other and how, you know, how they navigate our senses and use all our senses in tandem to unfurl an image basically. So, I mean, it's not just like we don't just approach images randomly. They draw us to them and, you know, they demand a certain kind of response. And within this situation, it was taking a screenshot of a fleeting moment, which is essentially what an image does as well, right? So like, in essence, every photograph is like a genealogy and the context changes the meaning. And I think that's where Tina Camp talks about, you know, haptics coming in. So having that sort of juxtaposition, a sort of stimulation coming in, whether it's being from the contesting images right next to each other or from the quote that is, you know, at the bottom of the page, was really interesting in how, you know, it nudges how we pick images, what we choose to think about them, and how we navigate this site as well. So I think it was a really interesting exercise in, you know, that moment of encountering an image, which is, you know, making you, the viewer, see things in a different light, seeing an image in a different light. So I think, yeah, it was really interesting. It was fun.
I'm just going to click through some of these. Did you want to speak a little bit about, you know, what these were, these images specifically, if they were?
I mean, over here as well, you know, like you're talking about maps and, you know, positioning yourself and separation within yourselves as well. And also like, you know, you're talking about social media, you're talking about confronting an image when you're pausing, listening, when you're letting your eyes glide through it. And I think in essence, I'm always drawn to maps because they are points of like convergence and divergence at the same time. So I that's what I do in my free time. I look at maps. So I think that's what drew me to this image. So yeah.
It's beautiful that there was a poem there by the.
Yeah, that was interesting as well. Yeah.
Nima, do you know where this poem? Did you upload this?
I don't think this is.
Contamination as collaboration.
That's from the book Mushrooms at the End of the World. Is that what it's called? Yeah, she talks about contamination and collaboration and like this idea of the fungal network. And I think I found that while I was reading it, actually, it made me think about the Packard also and reflecting on how our conversations kind of, you know, inform our work sometimes in these really interesting ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think cross-pollination are like, you know, similar in their advances. And I think that was something that was really interesting about this image.
And then exactly. Yeah, and then you have this refuse on the right. What is going on?
It's mold growing on rotten.
Exactly. That's wild.
But yeah, I mean, it's an encounter in motion. Like, you know, you're sort of taking a screenshot of something dying while something is coming back to life as well. And I think that's what, like, when I saw Barnett Newman's name at the bottom and the painting that he sold was also talking about death, the death of his brother, I guess, at the time. And it was kind of interesting that all of this sort of converged at this one screenshot. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And this is the final one, I think.
Oh, I just wanted to read this.
All right.
I just saw Benjamin in there and I was like, gotta read it later. So that's what that was about. It's literally a screenshot for me.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's incredible. Yeah. Thanks, Farah. I'm wondering if anyone else had any quick reflections on these before we move on to Tashi.
Can I read that out? The text in the other one?
This one?
Yeah. The angel of history freezes in the precarious present, motionless in the crosswinds, embodying what Benjamin called a dialectic at a standstill. Yet even here, a messianic pre-modern vision collides with the visual dialectics of modern painting, where contradictory meanings and images coexist without any possible resolution or synthesis, where a new geometry of space allows for many alternative planes of existence. The angel's hair unfolds like indecipherable sacred scrolls. His wings are turned inside out like a Mobius strip, where future and past, left and right, back and front, appear reversed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very good screenshot, Farah. I think that's what's also exciting is, I mean, as we kind of people share these images with us, like we're also kind of discovering so much of these relationships because none of this has been planned, right? So there's this kind of fun, kind of serendipitous little moments here. Tashi, are you all set to share your screen?
Yeah, for sure. I think, can everyone see that? Yeah. Yeah, I thought this is because it's clearly kind of like whoever is having this conversation is just trying to like crack a joke and someone else they're just not getting it, and the resistance there is really is kind of really pronounced and juxtaposed with I will not hype is a mind killer. I think it's just a really funny image, but also I thought what was interesting here was that the text bar option, you can actually, it says say something, but within the picture it's just caught in that moment and you can't really say something, and it's always going to kind of like have that empty space, and that you can for some reason this entire image just kind of projected that sense of resistance throughout everything, and even the little text at the bottom that says it is our needs which interpret the world, our drives and our drives and their for and against. Every drive is a kind of lust for domination. Each has its perspective, which it would like to impose as a norm on all other drives. And there's a really strong sense, again, I'm repeating myself, but of resistance here that I thought was really interesting, of each of these very different images and ideas feeding into each other. Yeah, so I thought that was a really funny and interesting image. But I'm just going to go through my next ones. See. Okay. Yeah, I also really I thought this image was interesting because the first thing that kind of popped out to me was who needs flags. And then there's this visual of a phone camera, but it's inverted. It's looking back at you, but at the same time, you know that it's used as kind of a tool to document, a tool to project identities into the world. And then the second line that you see is whom do flags need? And the fact that this phone cover, case camera is looking back at you is interesting because it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship between you and this device. And it's also reflective of the kind of either nationalistic or identity sentiments that are coming through in the next picture, with the Sri Lankan flag just slightly hinted at. Yeah, so I thought that was also, again, with the text at the bottom, that says every drive is a kind of lust for domination. Just the inclusion of these two aspects of who we are to the world and who we want to define ourselves in the world, and the kind of tools that we use in that process was really interesting to see here. Yeah, and there's a few other images. Apart from this saying defeat the baby as a reminder, I think the other picture that's alongside it is an upside down capture of the inside of a airplane, I think, and them having some kind of quarantine or like COVID safe protocol in clay, which I which I felt was interesting because one thing that came to mind is countries becoming very paternalistic towards their constituents and towards their citizens. And then, so there's the Alexa remind me to feed the baby kind of association with COVID procedures, but the actual reminder is defeat the baby. Which I don't know is that the outcome? Not sure, but yeah, I thought that was just a good capture. But yeah, these are some of the other ones that just randomly took. That's one. But yeah, at one point I just started screenshotting everything.
Oh my God, this is so good.
Is it the previous one? Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one especially, I think the chicken feet and the kind of carcasses strewn out everywhere. And the no pharmacy in this building. It seems very morbid, but yeah. Yeah, I think at one point I just started everything.
If you go back,
Yeah.
the shape of the finger and the shape of the red, first of all, the red end call button looks like a massive bindi. And then the shape of the phone is kind of like the shape that the finger is making. Really minute detail. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so if anyone has anything that they want to say, or please go ahead.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this image is the one on the right. I took that photo, and it's a bit of garbage strewn about, and this is near the Lotus Tower, which is this massive tower that the Rajapaksas built as a sort of symbol. It pretty much is symbolic to their party and like their whole national project. And the scrap that you see that of a, I guess, some sort of billboard says Api Venuen, and the rest of it says Api Venuen Api, which is one of their early campaign slogans. And here it just says, so Api Venuen Api means us on behalf of us. And here it just says on behalf of us. And when I took this photo, I was interested in how those who are supposed to represent you have left you in the dirt sort of vibe. And of course, this is reflecting on this idea of wasteland, right? And then this idea of it being almost here, and just thinking of where we are at now as a country with this, this, yeah, it's got a cruel humor going on. So it's interesting for me as, yeah.
No, go ahead, Diman.
No, so it's just interesting to see this image pop up again with this context. It's like, yeah.
And the image on the left is something that I actually, a screenshot that I took, because I was really, I think I was rushing to meet a friend or running late or stuck in traffic or something like that. And I texted them saying, instead of saying almost there or almost, I said almost here. I just kind of was like reflecting on that. Like, what does that mean? To be almost here. It's as if, in those cartoons where, the like, in Roadrunner, the coyote like falls off, and then the shadow or the dust on the coyote also remains and then falls off, and then, reaches the coyote as it's falling, kind of thing. And I've been thinking about that a little bit, in particular social situations, or when you're just there, you're not fully here. Like, it takes time for your body is here, you're physically present, and how it takes time for you to kind of like, I guess, like settle in and be present and be there and kind of exercise. So it's really, it was just a random kind of screenshot about kind of being in spaces but not really being in them, kind of floating through them. Kind of this hauntology of like plans, making plans, kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you, Tashi. I'm wondering if anyone else has any kind of reflections, and if not, we can move on.
Whoa. Spooky.
And so part of the context of, I think this is quite curious also, because what I'm seeing is on the left, we have this huge, I guess there's a lot, but it's a whole history of indentured, say, labor and not recognized as citizens. That is the sort of the plantation workers who works on tea plantations, who, the history is a really long and complex one, but more in the contemporary sense, they have been asking for, 1,000 rupee a day wage labor for years, and that has taken forever for them to sort of receive. But at the same time, even the people are kind of asking the question of like, 1,000 rupees a day, what does even that mean now, given the kind of current context, or, contemporary, the present in terms of the cost of living. And one of the curious, it reminds me of a poem, I can't remember his name, but he's talking about the tea pluckers and kind of talking about them as the backbone of the Sri Lankan economy, because in many ways tea is one of the big backbones of the Sri Lankan economy. But then he talks about Sri Lanka being this paradise, but about its paradise for some, because the very folks, who are essentially are seen as the backbone of the economy are also one of the most kind of marginalized groups of people, and economically really, really marginalized groups of people and oppressed groups of people. But at the same time, also used for, all the tourist pamphlets, and you can have these tourist tea plucking experiences where you can go and pluck tea with kind of the tea pluckers. And I think next to it is just a group of jackets that were hanging. And so this is back when Snapchat was a thing, and I just took a picture and turned them into little ghosts. So it's really creepy. All right, if there aren't any more kind of reflections, Iman, I'm just gonna hand it over to you to talk a little bit more about next.
So I have been plunged into darkness because there's a power cut, but I have enough battery. So that was really lovely to hear from you guys, engaging in this meaning making, as we're calling it. I think one of the most interesting things about how this project came about was that when we didn't have like immediately an idea of this is how the website should look. It was very much us trying to think of, okay, how do we do this kind of conversation that's happening already sporadically on our Instagram? How do we kind of create a space for that digitally? So yeah, it's really interesting. And maybe we can speak. I think Sandev covered a lot of like what our considerations were with it. But yeah, I would just want to say for you guys, when you're thinking of what you want to do as well, it's always interesting to kind of explore the sort of process that's interesting to you and see how that can come into the website and like form and things kind of arrive. Because the screenshot, for example, which you guys were just engaging in, was this idea of like what is happening when you take a screenshot, right? What is that impulse there that you've made a connection, you want to remember something? It's that a really interesting moment, and actually it was one of the last components that we decided to include onto it because we were really curious, because how we had designed the site before, we had no other way of knowing that someone was actually making a connection. So giving the screenshot was this ability to, you know, if someone screenshots it and shares it somewhere, we know that like these connections are being made. So every screenshot that's clicked is a sort of affirmation that, oh, someone was able to find meaning here, which is really interesting. Um, So yeah, thank you so much everyone for being here. And what we're going to do next for day 2 of the workshop is to invite you all to dive into your own archives. So the screenshots on your phone, maybe if you have something in your notes app or something like that, just, you know, from the examples you've seen, each of you can bring 10 images. And what we will then do is you will submit those images to us, and we will be randomly pairing them. And again, like today, just sort of see how we can interpret them, what kind of conversations are happening, and we can do that collectively. And yeah, it should be fun. So yeah, you got to pick 10 images, bring them on day 2, which is on the 30th. And yeah.
Yeah. Imad, should we also agree on like should we also come to the theme? Like, should we kind of ask folks to think about it through the same lens of wasteland, maybe, because we already have all of these images?
Yes. So I think going with the same theme would be interesting, because what we do want to do once we create these new pairings as well, and once your contributions come to the archive, we would like to feed that into our system. So what would happen then is that, let's say if there are 5 of y'all, there'll be 50 new images entering this stream, and so new conversations can happen as well. So I think, if you guys could respond also to the theme of wasteland, whatever that conjures for you, however you want to, whatever is in your archive that's resonating with that, you can bring.
Yeah. And we're largely thinking about, this is the archive, the thing that, you're taking photos on, you're writing notes on, you're screenshotting on, and so on. But yeah, thank you all so much for kind of joining in, kind of sharing kind of your reflections on our works. We're looking forward to kind of having this kind of continuing the experiment with more people and seeing what kind of little fun relationships might kind of go ahead and keep kind of permutating. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to the 30th. This sounds exciting. Do you want us to send you the images earlier, Imad, Sandeep, or should we just bring them with us on 30th?
Earlier would be great if everyone can.
Say by 30th morning, should we, how should we do it?
Yeah.
Should we email them to you all, or should we, Priyanka, Keith, should we email them to you all, or what would be the best option?
What we could do is, Priyanka, if you could share a Google Drive folder link.
Yeah. So if you can, I'll do that. So if you can write me like a short instructive note on what people, so that I can share it with a larger group, and I'll put the Google Drive link on the same email.
Yeah. So then I will make the Google Drive folder and I'll send you the instructions.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's do it that way. All right.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you all day
That was
after.
fun.